Hi everybody, welcome to another Chat Schmat, and I'm here once again with Neill Stringer, and hello to you, Neill.
Hello.
We're back once again, and in this episode we're going to be talking about the wonderful award-winning drama that is American soaps. And you know, we're talking about not the sort of thing you get in the UK where you've got, you know, Coronation Street and Eastenders, where there is a little bit of comedy in there, but it's mostly realism. Where in some of these American soaps, we've got anything but realism. We've been watching a couple of different examples. We watched Passions from the 90s. We watched some Susnset Beach, classic there, and The Bold and the Beautiful. And the Bold and the Beautiful seems to be a much cheaper show, but we've kind of been sort of having a look at them again, and you know, we've watched them off and on over the years, and we've been having a chat about it. And so Neill, tell everybody, you know, what this was all about and why we've done this, and your thoughts on it.
Well, we've always mocked the American soap opera, haven't we? But we've only watched the episodes sporadically over the years, haven't we? Like, I remember seeing Sunset Beach on Channel 5 in the late 90s when it was on for those few years, and I noticed bits of Bold and Beautiful, and I find it hilarious how the acting was, how tacky the sets looked, and how written some of the dialogue was. It made British soaps look like hard, gritty realism. And also, when you watch other American shows, you realize that a lot of housewives would actually sit there and watch these, and they would actually cry and get invested in these really over-the-top, far-fetched plots. But I think one of the storylines that always appealed to me, that I thought was so daft, it was, that could only happen in American soap opera, is, you know, the guy having an evil twin brother who kidnaps him, ties him up, puts him in a secret cupboard. He's forced to watch his evil twin brother take on his persona.
Okay, so let's just remind people, you know, I think it's fair to say that some of the soaps are designed to be this way. Certainly Sunset Beach is designed to be this way. Although I do think, you know, I think they wanted to last for years and years and years, but I think just some of the soaps are trying to be proper drama. One of the episodes we watched was of The Bold and Beautiful, and I was just picked random episodes that we could find, and in this particular episode, it was from January of 2021, which wasn't that long ago in relation to how long the show has been going, and filmed obviously during COVID, and the actors were standing so far apart it was even more comical when they did the dramatic zoom in of the face, and they're not even beside each other. You know, they're kind of standing one side of the house or one part of the room. You know, like one person's at the door, the other person's like at the couch. Plus, one of the things with this show, Bold and the Beautiful, is that although they've got exterior shots in terms of, you know, when they cut to somebody in an office, they'll have the outside of the office and they'll perhaps zoom in, but you do not get any exterior filming. It's always interior for exterior. So everything looks really cheap and fake, and someone goes out the door to get in their car to go to work. They go out the door, but you do not see a shot of them getting into their car and driving down the road and heading to work, or any kind of real sort of outside shots, so it all looks very samey, and the sets are really cheap looking. So, all right, you could get away with having cheap sets if you put something more into the actual production value of the show. But if you look at something like Sunset Beach, an Aaron Spelling series, that was obviously money was spent on it, and there's location filming on that show and all sorts of things. So, they make it look better by doing that. Whereas you get a soap like The Bold and the Beautiful, and it's really just people. It's just talking heads most of the time, a wide shot occasionally, a mid shot, that sort of thing.
Bold and Beautiful, I think, is one of the more. It's one of the longer running soaps. I know Days of Our Lives has been going since the '60s, which we did look at in our run up to this podcast, but I think Bold and Beautiful is one of the longer ones. Now, Sunset Beach only lasted for 2 years. Now, the ratings from there was high for that there, so maybe it burned brightly due to that money being spent on it.
I think one of the things that happened with Sunset Beach, and I mean it's a fair thing to say, is that the ridiculousness or the soapiness of it was its own downfall, because at the time you just didn't know what to make of it. For me, something like me who watches a lot of, let's be honest, crap TV, I watch a lot of good TV, but there's another one, Santa Barbara, which we didn't get a chance to look at, but we're going to do another soap episode, and we'll look more closely at Sunset Beach. Perhaps we'll include some Santa Barbara in there as well. But that's another cheap show from like the 80s that you can tell how that it's very fake and it's all set. At least with Sunset Beach, they did attempt to make it look a bit more realistic. It actually, when we were watching it, it gave us Baywatch vibes. So the way some of the shots were, I suppose it's from the same era as Baywatch, so perhaps that's why. But and it features lifeguards in the show as well. But what I was going to say was that when you look at the two versions of the show, or two versions of soap, what happened with Sunset Beach was the ridiculousness of it, the soapiness of it is almost what killed it, because to the casual viewer it became more and more confusing to watch.
Don't forget there was a sitcom. Don't forget the sitcom Soap was parting all the soap opera, which is why they always had that line at the end of every recap. Confused? You won't be after tonight's episode of Soap. Yeah. And and all these things come across, all these really complex and overlapping story plots always were being mocked in Soap, because there are so many bizarre story plots that you wouldn't get in our soaps. I mean, the episode Passions we watched, there was a 300-year-old witch trying to make sure twin sisters didn't meet, and she had this doll who was actually he actually came to life, and it was just what's the term? What's the right term? No, it was like
reanimated or animated or something.
Yeah, but it was like a wee dwarf actor. I thought it was a kid, but it wasn't. It was actually.
Yeah, it's an actor with some kind of condition. He does look like a child, but I don't think he is a child.
But the thing is, the storyline is it's venturing on the mystical. I read up about this character. She actually is over 300 years old and born with green skin, like grew up by. And you're thinking you would not get this kind of storyline in Eastenders.
Although it would be hilarious if we had to have grot bags in Eastenders.
No, but imagine if Peggy Mitchell was a witch or something.
Yeah.
And she'd actually been alive during the days of Salem.
The mind boggles. Incidentally, I'm drinking some water out of. I don't know if you can see this. I'm drinking some water out of the very special Schmat mug made to promote our show.
And I'm drinking coffee out of mine. And if you look at the other side, you got the
it's
physical media, guys, physical media.
It says Schmat side 1, and water and coffee taste better in this mug.
They sure do, Johnny. They sure do.
Not in this mug, which we're not sponsored by. That's coffee at its best.
I think you're gonna have to a wee frame of Garth Hunter.
Don't be a Gareth Hunt.
But as I said, I think the storylines. I think the American soap opera or the daytime drama is more of escapist TV rather than drama to make you get invested in. Well, you did get invested in daytime soaps in America, but for a completely different reason that we do for EastEnders, Carter Street, and Emmerdale.
Well, it's certainly not something you would refer to as cerebral. I mean, not that EastEnders or Emmerdale is, but at least there's an element of cheese in some of the soaps that we have in the UK, and certainly even Neighbours. Nobody is expecting to watch a soap and get, Shakespeare. Nobody's expecting that. But having said that, there have been plenty of Shakespearean actors in the soaps, and one of the most famous Shakespearean actors, Patrick Stewart, was in the longest running soap in the UK, Coronation Street.
Yeah, that's ballpark back in the 60s. And then Ian McKellen appeared in Carter Street.
I thought you said he had a bald part.
No, Ian McKellen had a part. He was playing this writer who was kind of conning the people or something.
Yes, and Edward Woodward. I can't even say it. Edward Woodward was in Edward Woodward was in EastEnders for a while as well. He was trying to equalize his paycheck.
But the thing is, whereas what I've noticed, what you can say about American soap operas is a comparison. Well, our soaps will probably have people getting murdered and teenage pregnancies and a lot of depressing stuff happening in our soaps. Which is Alien Abductions, Evil Twin Brothers, Cat People, would not be out of place in the American soap opera setting.
And also, I mean, a couple of years ago in Neighbours, we had the return of a character called Dee, but it wasn't really Dee. It was a woman who looked like Dee and was pretending to be her. That's when soaps kind of veer into the real soapiness. They can be really funny. There was a time years ago when Harold, all of his family were most of his family were killed in a plane crash, and he blamed Paul Robinson, and he went mad and sort of strangled Paul Robinson, and he made all these eye for an eye Robinson as he put a hanky over the phone and rang him up, and he just it was never, I don't think Paul Robinson ever realised it was him. He didn't see, he just thought it was an attacker, but it was the funniest thing on TV for a long time. So I'm a fan of that sort of thing. The only problem is whenever you have a soap and it's difficult to follow. I think you can forgive a soap if the plot is understandable, but I think the problem, certainly with Susnset Beach, was that it got very confusing. I mean, even I'm not a fan of Hollyoaks, but a friend of mine is, and years ago we used to watch it at the weekends. He used to watch the omnibus, so we would end up watching the omnibus with him. And there was a period of time when Hollyoaks went very surreal. And the thing is, what happened? You would see a scene play out, and then all sorts of things would happen in it, and then suddenly it would snap back to the person again at the start of the scene. It's like, oh, that whole 5 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever it was, 30 seconds, that wasn't real. The person was just thinking it or dreaming it. So there was a lot of confusion about what exactly was real and what part of the plot everybody knew about and all that kind of thing.
And moving away from American soap operas and go back to Australian, I remember years ago in Neighbours that Philip Martin had this whole storyline where he used a female pseudonym to write trashy romance novels, and his daughter Hannah became very obsessed with his work. And I remember one scene where she's reading his novel on the computer screen, and you just see like a weak disembodied head of Philip Martin appear in front of her, kind of like good guy, bad guy that kind of conscience says should he write this, should she be reading this or what's he doing? And I was like, oh, it's really bizarre.
Now, the most bizarre thing that ever happened in Neighbours was Bouncer's wedding, because if I remember it correctly, Bouncer was dreaming about having a wedding, and they actually shot the wedding scenes with another dog. So you had this whole scene where Bouncer was dressed up, and he had a dog that was dressed up in a bride's outfit, and had this whole scene where Bouncer got married, but it was all a dream, but it was Bouncer's dream. So the dog had a dream, and it was it's part of the show. And it's.
I would like to assume that one. That sounds like something right out of an American soap opera.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's available on YouTube. I very much doubt it. But if I can ever find a clip of it, I will insert it in here. If not, you'll have to just use your imagination.
But American soap operas seem to really love. I love their exposition and line delivery of it. Like, do you remember when we were watching Passions and the two twins are feeling like, hey, I feel wonderful. I think it's going to be great. I think something amazing is going to happen.
She's having dinner with her husband, and she's suddenly sitting there going, oh, everything's amazing. And her husband's sort of, his eyes light up, thinking, he's gonna get something tonight. But she's like, oh no, but I've suddenly got feelings about my sister. And you're sort of like, where's this going? And it's what they're trying to say is that the two twin sisters are, unbeknownst to each other, end up eating in the same restaurant after not seeing each other for 20 years. And
yeah,
the witch that we were talking about, sort of brilliantly hammed up by Juliette Mills. She's just going all out pantomime villain with this, but her job in the script is to prevent these two from getting together. Otherwise, apparently she's dead, and apparently the doll that came to life, Timmy, keeps talking about himself in the third person. He is going to die as well. So they're trying to prevent this. Whereas these two people are going to the most unexciting restaurant set that you'll ever see.
No. Actually, I just read up a wee bit of history about this witch character. Her name is Tabitha Lennox. She was born somewhere in Europe on November 21st in the year 1666. She is a witch residing for well over 300 years in the eastern seaport town of Harmony. She is known to be virtually immortal, that when one body dies, she is later reborn in another identical body. It is known that she witnessed and or participated in numerous historical events. She claims to have been the child of a mortal father, Darren Lennox, and a witch mother named Samantha. As a child, Tabitha had green skin because of her mother's side and of the family. She was descended from a frog prince. Her early life is unknown, though as a young adult in Magic Academy, she was teased because of her skin color. And later, because of this, Tabitha was an avid student of dark magic and gradually befriended another young witch, Esmeralda. Now,
for a start, they just ripped off all those names from the TV show Bewitched.
Exactly. But also, you will get this in Eastenders now, would you? Tabitha's former companion was Timmy, a doll she had created and brought to life. Timmy had many incarnations over the centuries, always being stitched back together and brought back to life when met with misfortune. He had cohorted with his tabby on all of her historical capers, including the sinking of the Titanic. His latest incarnation was in 1999 when Tabitha once again brought him to life to do her bidding. His mission in this lifetime was to help Tabitha destroy Charity Standish, a young girl with the ultimate powers of good. Tabitha was ordered by the dark forces to destroy Charity in order to keep her from mating with her one true love, Miguel Lopez Fitzgerald, which would supposedly trigger her full powers of goodness, thereby eradicating all evil in the universe forever, and presumably Tabitha as well. Wow, now, how much better would EastEnders be if you had storylines like this on EastEnders or Coronation Street? Imagine if Kent Barrell turned out to be a warlock who's over 600 years old.
Indeed, and now I was just looking. Now the person who played it says here Timmy Lennox. So Timmy is the doll, but it says a fictional character from the NBC daytime drama Passions, portrayed by Josh Ryan Evans. It says the actor died of congenital heart defect. the very day his character Timmy died on the show and donated his heart to charity. So very strange and I suppose quite poignant.
But it is poignant. But it's a weird storyline for a soap opera, isn't it? But then again, it's probably commonplace for the world of the soap opera in America compared to ours. I mean, as I say, I don't think Peggy Mitchell's going to turn out to be a witch. Would never try to be a witch in Eastenders, or Grant Mitchell and Phil Mitchell turn out to be warlocks who are holding a precedence over Alvesquare to keep it safe from the demons of the Netherworld. That all of a sudden Eastenders sounds a lot more interesting, doesn't it?
Well, I just wanted to say, I was just checking what age he was because I know he had some kind of condition, where he kind of looks like a child on the show, but it said he was 20 years old when he died, so just very interesting. So it's very sad, but I mean, he was giving a good performance because, what can you do in a show like that? You have to ham it up.
I mean, the storyline is if it wasn't in a soap, and it was say a show that dealt porno, say X-Files or even Kolchak if he did the 70s, it's a storyline that would feel out of place in there because that's what those shows deal with. But in the daytime soap opera, it just feels very bizarre. Then again, it makes me wonder, would Baywatch Nights be more plausible in the daytime soap opera world?
Well, I was just going to say, I think that could have been a Baywatch Nights episode, for goodness sake.
As I said, it feels like a Baywatch Nights episode, but in a daytime soap. But yet, it doesn't feel out of place in an American daytime soap because there's no limits on an American daytime soap. Whereas Baywatch Nights, you're kind of going, hold on a second, how does this fit in with all the
exactly? But I mean, the UK soaps. They tend to be real. They like I say, there have been examples where soaps have veered into the surreal. Hollyoaks did do it for a while, and I guess you could say Crossroads did it. I mean, when they brought Crossroads back in the early 2000s, it was dreadful. But it was even the thing I was saying about it before was that when they made Crossroads originally, they were just trying to make a soap. Whereas when they brought it back, they were trying to make it uber cheesy. They were aware that people thought it was really cheesy. And I think at that point then they just went overboard, and the UK audiences probably weren't into it.
But I think the problem was, it's the reason why the best worst films are the ones where the director thinks he made art. There's a reason why Plan 9 from Outer Space by Ed Wood, or The Room by Tom Wiseau, or any other film done by even Birdemic, which is atrociously made. It's very amateurishly made. The dialogue is still worse. But because these directors thought they were making art with these films, there's a naivety. So we are, laughing at them because they are so inept. Whereas your Sharknadoes and any other films from the Asylum, they purposely are making crap, so it's becoming more of a, here's another sci-fi original, or here's another sci movie, and they are purposely knowingly making crap because they're doing like the cheap cash-ins on films. But the ones like The Room, Planet of Outer Space, and Birdemic, and all, these guys thought they made art, and they're still, even to this day, Damon Russell is so naive about The Room.
Well, the thing is though, I mean, there is the B movie thing is a whole different genre too. People know that the B movies, when they make them, B movies are not, they're like the when you used to go and see a movie, you would see like two, and you would see the main feature and another one, so they know that they have to be a certain way. So the Sharknadoes and things, I think there's a lot of films out there like that do it well, in the sense that they know what their audience is. They know. Another example of a franchise that does it well is the Stormship Troopers movies. The sequels. That's Stormship. What am I saying? Starship Troopers.
Stormship Troopers. I like to see that one.
Starship. I don't know what I say. Starship Troopers. That those films are very tongue in cheek. but yet still entertaining, and there's a lot of effort put into them. I mean, the problem is with the likes of, say, the cheesy soaps, is that you need to know your audience. You know, you need to know who's going to be watching this. Whereas the likes of Crossroads, people had an idea of what Crossroads was, and when they brought it back, they tried to amp up the cheesiness. But the problem is that people couldn't take it. There's too much cheese.
As I said, that was what I was getting at. The fact that they knowingly made it cheesy, whereas the original one had naivety, they're just trying to be so. That's the difference. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But there's something good trying to get out.
But there is an element to it, though, especially of like the likes of The Bold and the Beautiful, of churning these things out. You know, there's little to no effort involved. Once you construct the sets, and once you've constructed the sets, and once you've filmed the exterior shots that you're going to use every time. So if you have an office building, once you've got that office building shot, and maybe the odd stock shot, once you've got that, really you just churn them out. You can film characters. This is the way a lot of soaps do it. Is in one episode you'll get certain amount of characters in it, and the next episode you'll get other ones, and sometimes they cross over, sometimes they don't. So while they're filming on one side of the studio, they're filming the other bit on the other side of the studio. So they churn them out. So yes, to a degree, you get this kind of idea, The Bold and the Beautiful. It's all these sort of rich people and all that kind of thing, but yet it looks such a cheap show. And I remember one time I was watching it. This was years ago, and there was a girl on a bike, and she literally was on a bike, and it was like a rear screen projection thing where she wasn't moving, but the background was. It was so cheap looking, and it just took you out of the moment. You know, there was just no getting away from it. Imagine if the BBC had done such a thing here. You know, where they have purpose built sets for the soap in the UK, exterior and interior. So if they go out onto the cobbles of Coronation Street, they're actually outside, so it's location filming on a lot. Whereas these places, for some reason, don't seem to take that into account. The lot they are on is not, it's all inside. It's inside a big studio, not.
And also, I think the other difference between our British soaps and American soaps is that I think there's even more for realism in our soaps. It's working class. People are very ordinary looking. There's not many pinups in your
with the exception of like Hollyoaks would be one where you would get more glamorous actors, I suppose.
But American soaps are, everyone's beautiful, everyone's perfect, everyone looks amazing.
You wouldn't get a Phil Mitchell. You wouldn't get a Phil Mitchell in The Bold and the Beautiful.
No, and you're not gonna get, and you're not gonna have a Phil Mitchell poster. I know there might be someone who might want a Phil Mitchell poster, but if you look at Susnset Beach and you look at all those beautiful women in there and the hunky men, but especially the beautiful women. I mean, put those beautiful women against Emily Bishop, Deirdre, back in the day, Raquel,
Mavis.
They're still good.
Mavis.
Mavis, or Rita.
I mean, I don't watch the show. As far as I'm concerned, they're still in it.
But there's you can see that there is no comparison. This really.
No, I mean I can't see Ken Barrow as a centerfold.
Hey, like.
But it's down to the audience, though, isn't it? I mean, those networks that commissioned those shows. I mean, NBC commissioned Passions, so you kind of wondered yourself, you think, well, what audience was NBC aiming for there?
Well, it's like going, oh no, I think the audiences do get invested. I have to stay here. I have to find out if Bob will find out if his twin brother actually does know he exists, and will Tabitha actually be able to stop those two twin sisters from meeting. Oh my God, this is the biggest cliffhanger you can ever think of. I mean, really,
and it's just the cheapness of it. So whenever they have something big happening, like for example Sunset Beach, we watched like the first couple of episodes of it there, to refresh ourselves, and it's the character Meg who, you know, finds out her fiance is cheating on her, and she decides to ditch him and head to Sunset Beach because she's been talking online in a very 90s way on a chat room of some kind, or I don't know, was it a chat room or email or something? I don't know what it was. Anyway, it was old school dial-up. And she goes and she's been talking to this guy, and of course, you know, she doesn't know who he is. He just goes with the name SB, and she goes to a very aptly named, what was it, Java Web coffee shop, and you know, she tries to figure out who it could be. You know, this is after she fell into the water and was rescued by a lifeguard and all this stuff.
After we say the girl who stole her bag.
Yes, so there was all this drama, so she ends up without her money. But the thing is, like, she goes into this coffee shop. Oh, and it's owned by, the audience knows who SB is. It's one of the main characters of the show, and of course she goes into this coffee shop that is owned by him, and he helps save her and all this stuff. And then of course, you know, there's all this kind of maybe they're gonna find out, maybe they're not. Oh, I can't. It's frustrating, you know, and that's how they keep you hooked. You know, it's like, like ships in the night they've missed, you know. And that, I guess that's one of the truths. But the early episodes of Sunset Beach are the more what I would call normal. I mean, it did get a bit more crazy. I mean, there's a character in it who's an alcoholic, and I was joking saying, you know, I'm going to be the Joan Collins of this soap, but she is the Lush in it, and it just escalates and escalates, and you know, you get all sorts of random. I mean, even Scotty from Star Trek shows up in it randomly, and stuff later on. So it's just like, you know, what is going on with this? But it's all in good fun. It's Aaron Spelling, so you know you're gonna get a bit of cheese with that.
The thing I wanted to try and clarify was, this all happened in one day, right, for her?
Yes, the time. That's another thing. Time is fleeting, and it can also be everything. It's, you just don't know what time is on this thing.
Because the way they were going is, okay, she was getting married in the war. So her day started. She got married. She was going to get married. Found out her fiance was cheating on her with one of the maid of honors. So she drives, steals his car, decides to go to Sunset Beach, ditches the car, goes on an airplane to Sunset Beach, arrives in Sunset Beach after being on the plane for maybe a couple of hours. She's looking around, is able to meet up some of the people in the cafe, not even a hint of jet lag, and she gets her bag stolen. She almost falls to her death and almost drowns, and she goes to a rep cafe, and then she calls her mother up that night, and I'm getting the impression that was meant to be all in one day.
Yeah, she seemed to be saying, "Oh, what a day I've had," you know, over 2 episodes or whatever it was.
That's like 2 days worth of travel, you know, just being there alone, you know.
I know, and then in the show Passions, there was one of the characters, I think, was the aunt of one of the characters. There was a Passions. Which one was that now? You know, the one. What, that was the same show, and there was the maid who was spilling her heart out to her employer. You know, there was the daughter of the housekeeper, was really attracted to the son of the woman who lived in the house, and so she's spilling her guts.
Mrs. Lopez Fitzgerald.
And the girl goes into the shower room. Apparently, she has spilled things over him and stuff accidentally, and all this kind of thing. And she might be a stalker of him or something like that. And she was trying to say she wasn't stalking him and spilling her guts while he was in the shower. And there's like 5 minutes of a scene where she's and remember, and I'm telling you, I've loved you ever since the first I saw you, all this stuff, and she's talking away, and then, you know, like if it was you or I would start talking, and then I would go, "Are you listening to me? Are you listening?" No, she went on and on and on, and then the only reason then she had to hide, and he came out and says, "Oh, what? Who was that? What?" You know.
Yeah, because I'm always going to speak in exposition, you know, to someone who doesn't watch the movie. I remember that day 5 years ago. I'm sure you remember too. When we first met, you and I, we were in this desert together, and you held my hand, and you walk out, and you kind of go, it's the old as you know Bob trope. As I go, yeah, I know, you know.
It's just it's just one of those shows and tropes, or especially there was a lot of that. You start a scene, and it's like, so Sarah, I can't believe it. Your pregnancy test came through. You're pregnant. And then it cuts 10 minutes away. It cuts to something else, and then it comes back to them and says, "You telling me you're pregnant? So who's the father?" And it's like literally the next line or something, and it's just timelines are skewed, aren't they?
Yeah. What do you mean? I think that the fact that I'm telling you about the pregnancy test that I've just done, I've been the box means that I'm not pregnant. Therefore, you don't have to worry that you're not. That you don't have to worry that you are not the father, and that there is no other father because I didn't have a pregnancy test. But I'm saying that I'm not pregnant.
Yeah,
but you're not.
That was in Susnset Beach. One of the characters was like, the guy. They're two cops, and they're kind of going out with each other and their partners as well. And they're like, he comes in and he says, "What's with the pregnancy test?" And she was like, "Well, I'm, are you pregnant?" And he said, "Well, what would you do if I was?" And he didn't answer. She goes, "Well, I'm not going to tell you then." And it was just all this whole thing. It was just pointless. But it's kind of like one of those things. If you imagine, say, someone was in a scene in a soap, American soap, and they were hammering a nail in, and they were using a saw to cut some wood, and they cut their thumb off. Like, "Oh no, I've cut my thumb." Yeah, cliffhanger type moment. They cut to another scene, and they have some of the people have dialogue and all the rest of it. And 10, 15 minutes goes by, and that goes into that scene again. "I guess I better call 911." And you're kind of, well, what? You waited 10 minutes for it to bleed,
And then you probably have the as it's about to happen, you may have that over dramatic music. You
go. Or in the case of Susnset Beach, it was really cheesy guitar music in that sort of Aaron Spelling style, isn't it?
Actually, I have to say I like the title sequence to Susnset Beach. It's only so much of the.
I know, it's so cheesy. You kind of, without a really cheesy title sequence, that's a given. I mean, they're all. I mean, Coronation Street and Eastenders, they don't have the characters in the titles, so it's generally not a thing with the UK. So I mean, the only one, Hollyoaks, again has that thing where they've got the characters in there. It's really cheesy. That's probably the cheesiest, the closest we have to a regular daytime soap is Hollyoaks, I would say.
I think the cheese. I think the closest EastEnders comes to cheese is when they turn the song, the theme tune to EastEnders into a love song.
Yeah, back in the early 90s. In the early 90s, they actually did change the theme to EastEnders, and it was like a saxophone type theme, but it just didn't work. People hated it. They were like, "Please change that back." So they did. But yeah, we Anita Dobson released. She released it as a single in the 80s. "Anyone Can Fall in Love." It's certainly memorable. Let's put it that way. But I mean, we will be. We'll look at some more soaps. We'll look into more details into actually some of the storylines and things in Susnset Beach. We're going to have another watch of that, and we'll talk about some other soaps as well. There's another one called Santa Barbara that I would like to try and get episodes of. It's super cheap looking, and but yeah. But so I think to kind of sum things up, then, we cannot help ourselves when these soaps are on. They're the kind of soaps that they're good to dive into for a bit of fun, but you need to be careful you don't get sucked into them.
Yeah, because I mean, they're trash compared to our soaps, and I'm not a fan of our soaps, but because the American soaps are more far-fetched, more over the top, more zany, I can see why there's a bit of a guilty pleasure with the American soaps. I'm not going to rush out and start watching them, but it's just late. But I can see, the appeal of them compared to us, our soaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are tuning in for different reasons for our soaps. You know, they want the depression, in EastEnders, they want all that. Whereas I'm more a fan of the more optimistic and ridiculous, which says a lot about me, but it also says a lot about the fans, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, imagine they did a plot in EastEnders where Phil Mitchell goes back in time to the medieval times of Albert Square, and and somehow starts his family legacy.
And I think on that note, we'll definitely have to get back onto the topic of soaps. There's much more to say on the matter, but I just wanted to have a quick look. And see, what. Just want to have a quick discussion about it and sort of see what other people. Perhaps you can get in touch with us and email us or leave comments below in the YouTube video, and see what you can tell us. Introduce us to the cheesiest soaps that we might not have heard of. But for the moment, from me, Jonny Porter, I'm saying goodbye and see you next time.
And Neill Stringer also sign off. Bye. It's time to say goodbye. The rich is gonna curse me, but I'm gonna do it. I love this. I think aliens are gonna come and take me away.
I love it. And I'm going to cut my audacity. That sounds bad, but.